normative concern for policymakers.
Yes, sir. The thing about market force that you're talking, I was recently reading a book, Conflicts of Interest by Sunita Narayan. In that, she told to do a task. She told to find a map of India, underline the parts of India which are the most rich naturally, and then another map and underline the parts which are most poor and devastated, like economically, and overlap them, and you'll contrastingly find the place which has the highest natural wealth is the place which is lowest in economy and most poor health index and living conditions. So yeah, we are living in an ironical world. So let's move ahead, and now coming to the talk about the budget. Like recently, budget was passed, and sir, so I went through some points. Like we even wrote a piece on it, but I can't get an insight from it. So sir, let's start with how you see it. Please give us a brief opinion on budget 2022. Like, what are the best and worst parts of it, according to you? Just a brief way. What do you think of it?
So there are, of course, quite a few positive aspects of it. And more importantly, something that I perceive as far as this budget is concerned is that it has made an important statement. And this is something that I have been noticing over the last three budgets, that there is a statement on green transition. So, and more importantly, if you read the budget speech over the last 3 years, you find that there has been a paradigm shift from addressing the traditional macroeconomic parameters, only addressing the traditional macroeconomic parameters like income growth or fiscal parameters or consumption, investment, savings, etc., to addressing development more holistically, driven by the pathways drawn by the global SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. So this is something that needs to be viewed as a paradigm shift. Now, there are three important things that if I provide get into a very macro picture of the budget. One is that there is an intention to combine macro level growth with micro level distributive justice, or she calls it well-being. So the distribution aspect is definitely there. Northeast has been talked of, and infrastructure and connectivity in the Northeast has been talked of quite a bit in the budget. Digital economy and fintech has a very, very prominent role. One very important thing is definitely in relation to 30% tax on the crypto. This has essentially two implications. One is that there was a talk at one point in time that crypto is going to be, we don't acknowledge crypto, and there were apprehensions all across that crypto is going to be banned. But a 30% tax on crypto is a statement that crypto is being acknowledged, A. B, this is also tantamount to a wealth tax. So this is an asset, and this is tantamount to a wealth tax. And the government has acknowledged crypto as some kind of an asset class. So this wealth tax can be used for various developmental purposes. Now, C, let me come to the point C, which I really liked about this budget, is that it intends to exploit the virtuous cycle between public investment and private investment. Now, traditionally, I presume the host of undergrad students who are listening to this, they have been studying this Keynesian phenomenon of crowding out of private investors, that the government comes up with its own investment and that actually pushes out private investors from the system. But here, in fact, this entire trade-off is being envisaged to be reversed. It's reversed in the sense that public investments is going to happen through capital expenditure, mostly creating social infrastructure like roads, railways, creating other forms of infrastructure which actually enhance the business competitiveness of the economy. B, when you enhance the business competitiveness of the economy, the rate of return to private investment is also going to increase. So public investment is not being thought of as competitive to in competition to private investment, but as an enabling factor for private investment. So this is a very strong and a very important statement made by the FM. However, I have 2-3 apprehensions from the perspective of sustainability, though in fact it makes a statement on green transition. The statement that it fails is that beyond energy and climate change, there has been a clear failure in acknowledging the green from the perspective of the biodiversity and the ecosystem. The disastrous statement is with the Kane-Betwa link canal, because this link canal is going to pass through the Panna Tiger Reserve on the one hand. So you, on the one hand, you are putting in money to the National Tiger Conservation Authority, and on the other hand, one of the tiger reserves are going to get submerged. So that definitely, and more importantly, it sets a wrong precedence. River interlinking by itself is a disastrous plan, despite whatever I have been writing for this from time immemorial, that despite whatever, in fact, you talk of in terms of irrigation benefits or hydropower and solar power, as also, in fact, for other drinking water and whatever it is, but the ecosystem costs are huge. First of all, you are changing the entire flow regime of a river, which is going to compromise with the integrity of the river basin ecosystem. Second is the species, that knowledge simply doesn't exist. This is a very narrow-minded engineering intervention, very myopic reductionist engineering intervention for some very myopic economic benefits. This, in the long run, this is going to have disastrous impact on the ecosystem. Now, if this turns out to be, suppose, say, shows some short-term success, because it's bound to have short-term success. All these projects, including the large dam projects, they all had short-term success. In the long term, they are all failures and turned out to be huge costs for the society, ecosystem, as also to the economy as a whole. So, on the other hand, in fact, there is a statement that if the DPRs of 5 link canals of the peninsular rivers, if the states agree, then that is going to be supported by the center. Now, all these DPRs are never sufficient. This is only, barely those are engineering projections and some and showing some economic benefits without any concern of the broader social costs and the ecosystem costs. And if one plugs in the values of the lost ecosystem services in the entire cost benefit matrix over time and space, then one will notice that the costs exceed the benefits. Somehow this integrated cost benefit analysis doesn't happen for these projects. For that, you need an ecological economist to do that. So somehow that dimension is missing. The third point is with promoting extremely water consuming crops like paddy and wheat through the minimum support price and procurement mechanism. Most of the water conflicts in India have been caused because of that, because of paddy and wheat, irrigated paddy and irrigated wheat. Third point is when you talk about large scale capital expenditure and infrastructure development, then definitely, our experience suggests that the mitigation mechanisms of the ecosystem and the forest losses and the land use changes have to be put in place, but they have not been done so far as India is concerned. So those costs have to be plugged into the system, and those are not there. So this is going to be something very crucial. But what I really liked about the budget on the other side is it talked about, the development of infrastructure and social infrastructure, housing, etc., for the border villages. This is a very, very crucial statement from all perspectives, from a regional development perspective, as also from an international relations and strategic perspective. Whether it's the border with China or a border with Bangladesh, more critical is the border with China. So essentially, that is going to have a major statement as far as the strategic relations with the bordering nations are concerned.
Thank you so much for this, sir. I have one more question. that you also covered it, but I feel that the question is about economic development and environmental or sustainable development. Sir, I have noticed that even all it happens in all the climate summits. It even happened in the COP26 that the Western powers, who are the real polluters of the world, they don't acknowledge it. They don't acknowledge that they
Hmm.
have done something. They are not ready to compromise at all. Okay, so all the pressure falls on us, and the third world nations have to compromise. It's okay that we also should. I agree totally that climate as a whole is our responsibility as much as theirs. So,
Hmm.
sir, my question is that economic development and environmental consumption or conservation, they don't usually go hand to hand. Like in Delhi is the biggest example. The automobile sector, the cars, number of cars in Delhi is increasing rapidly. Okay, and there is you can say minimum expenditure on the public transport.
Hmm.
Like we can't learn this from the Western nations that it happened to them, but after that they started expanding in the public transport, and now their cities, their air is clean. Instead, what we are doing, that we are also following the same path, that first we'll commit the mistake and then we'll cover it up. So, sir, how do you see that India can achieve, like PM said in the COP26, that by 2070 India will achieve the net zero target? So, how do you see it? Like, do you think that it can be achieved without hampering India's economic development? Do you think that we have the scope for this, or do you think that we are on the right track right now?
See, economic development, first of all, there should not ideally be a conflict between the two. If you define development from a holistic paradigm rather than defining development through the growth lens. If you're defining development only through a growth lens, which we have been doing so far, then all these problems are going to arise. So this growth fetishism of the Indian economy somehow has to go away. Development is a holistic paradigm. By development, what we mean is we need to have distributive justice, we need to have economic efficiency, we need to have social and environmental sustainability. And this is a triangle. This is a what I call a policy triangle challenge, the irreconcilable trinity of efficiency, equity, and sustainability. Now we have to reconcile between these three. Now, what is the path ahead? Are we going to talk about green growth? Because see, I don't care about the COP. Our concerns are different. COP is essentially a platform emerging from a very Occidental statement, a Western statement. Our concerns are different. Let me remind you what you stated, Sunita Narayan's book, that the maximum poverty exists in that region, in that space, where essentially you have the maximum you have the maximum greenery. This, in many of my studies on valuation of ecosystem services, this is something that has emerged, that the value that these communities, the poor community, this is, I'm talking about, say, the Gaya landscape in Bihar, the value of the ecosystem services, that is the community, poor community, they are getting a host of services from the ecosystem: food, fishery, fiber, fodder, etc., free of cost. They don't have to pay the ecosystem back, right, for that. When I monetize these values exceed their incomes. I devised an index called the Ecosystem Dependency Index. And in most cases, especially in the poor regions of the developing world, this ecosystem dependency index is greater than 1. That means you extract more from the ecosystem than what you get from the economy. And that is precisely why you found that kind of a map, that wherever whichever patch is green, the poverty is concentrated there. So this is essentially something that we have to think of. Now, UNEP, they came up with a notion known as the inclusive wealth. Inclusive wealth is essentially the sum of 3 capitals. These 3 capitals are natural capital, physical capital, and human capital. And when they estimated the movement, as far as India is concerned, from 1990 to 2014, first of all, let me come to the global estimates. When they estimated the movement, they found that physical capital across the world, that is physical infrastructure in terms of roads, railways, etc., all these have grown at the cost of natural capital. That is forests, water, etc., biodiversity by itself. In India, the inclusive growth, the inclusive wealth, the inclusive asset wealth of India has actually declined in real terms between 1990 to 2014. In real terms, it was 363 or 64 in 1990. It declined to $358 in 2020, in 2014. And this is precisely because of the decline in natural capital. Now the concern is that how do we bring them together? We need that paradigm of green economy. Now, green economy has to bring in the notion of ecosystem services in the entire development paradigm, accounting for natural capital, accounting for physical capital. We have to grow human capital. We need to have human capital induced economic growth, physical capital induced economic development and regional development without compromising with the sustainability and integrity of the natural capital. And that is the golden policy challenge, policy triangle. This policy triangle challenge is the critical challenge as far as the Indian economy is concerned.
Okay, thank you so much, sir, for talking to us. Let me just stop the recording.